Hey guys, so welcome back to another episode of the Ojiako podcast, or the Ojiako show, whichever one suits you guys. So I get straight into it. UFC Vegas 18. So first up was the match between Alexander Volkov versus Alistair Overeem. Volkov being, I think, from Russia, and Alistair being half Dutch, half Jamaican. Now, I remember Alistair Overeem because of the last match he had. Was it? I may be wrong, but in 2019 or so. Towards the end of that year, it was a match that actually hit the opponent. I can't remember the opponent's name off the top of my head, but it caused him to basically his opponent in a strike got his lip got Overeem's lip torn. Obviously, I had to have emergency surgery. But no, straight back to the point. What I'm talking about. So I was wrong in my last prediction for in my last podcast for UFC Vegas 18. I said that I thought that this match, just looking at how Volkov fought in one match against another opponent and how Overeem fought in one match with another opponent, I thought that Volkov would actually lose, and I thought that Overeem would win. I think it's one of those situations whereby size doesn't really matter. You may have a little size and a lot of power, but it depends how you use it efficiently in the cage or wherever against your opponent to have the advantage and to win the competition. So I was wrong. So it's one of the things I'm learning about the sport of mixed martial arts. Got it badly wrong, and thank goodness that I didn't put any bets on this one, because I really thought that because Overeem, if you look at both of them, Volkov is taller. He stands at 6'7". He's actually heavier even, because I thought that maybe Overeem would be heavier, because looking at them, at least in my eyes, from my own perspective, my own opinion, Overeem does look has just a little bit more size and width in terms of muscle, and Volkov looks a bit slimmer, skinnier. So I thought because of his lanky appearance, if I can call it that, but of course he's not necessarily lanky, but because of his appearance, way Volkov looks, I thought he would have the disadvantage in this fight, but obviously he proved me wrong. In the fight I was watching, go on, there were several occasions. There were occasions that Overeem had his hands up to guard his face and head, and Volkov hadn't done this one. So Volkov had thrown in a lot of strikes, done a lot of damage to Overeem. And in the first round, he had done so much damage to Overeem that I think Overeem had broken his nose, and there was blood at all of his face. His face was, as I heard once, there was a fucking mess. And that really was more pronounced in round 2 as the fight wore on. He was really hurt. His nose was bleeding, and Volkov won the match by TKO. And if I just play it here on TV, here, I can see that there is just towards the when Volkov gets his win, just like a heavy, a serious 1-2 that he gives his opponent, and just sends Overeem to the ground, and Volkov finishes the job with just dishing out shots and strikes. So I was wrong about this fight. Now the stats: Volkov stands at 6'7", Overeem 6'4". Volkov's 260 pounds and Overeem's 256 pounds. So take from that what you will. So after that was the co-main event, Cory Sandhagen versus Frankie Edgar, the bantamweight division. I just make sure I got this correct, because I will not say in the podcast something that's completely wrong. Yeah, bantamweight division. So guys, this one is one of those fights that it ends before it's even really started. So the bell goes for the beginning of round 1, and then they're pacing up and down, and then just out of nowhere, Sandhagen delivers this flying knee, just immediately puts Edgar to sleep and just knocks him out cold. I saw that in the videos. Just wow, that's it's really something that was wow, just wow, just of course at the same time I was hoping that as Dominic Cruz was saying in a video he posted on his Instagram later on, after when he'd left the arena and left the cornerside commentary desk and everything, he said that was well done to Cory Sandhagen. Even in his commentary saying that's how you get a title shot, that's how you do it. He was saying when he left the arena, like at the same time you want to make sure and hope that the other guy is okay before you start celebrating, because it's a fight where people fight to compete, not to get hurt or to kill themselves. But that was crazy. People were reacting, holy shit, just what the fuck, it was crazy. So Cory Sandhagen, well done. So up next was Johnson versus Guida, the lightweight division. And now, what can I say about this fight? Guida did won the fight by unanimous decision. Can I say this safely? He in the fight they did. If you look at his face and everything, it did look like out of the two he had taken more damage. I think his face. Actually, let me get this up on the screen. Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking back now. There's one point during the fight that he's got his opponent clinched up against the fence, and then just manages to spot body slam his opponent straight away into a takedown there. So, he performed really, really well in the fight, and one of the things I made in my notes is that he did take plenty of damage, but he also at the same time did dish out plenty of strikes, a few kicks and clinches. But out of the two, I can see why he won. He really gave it his all. So I think someone was saying he looks like he's 50, but no, the guy's actually just 38 or 39. So he's still young. Up next after that was the Pantoja versus Cape or Carp. This guy's name, which is the featherweight division. Initially I thought Carp's name was pronounced Carpe, but no, it's actually Carp or Cape. If it's wrong, if you're watching this on YouTube, please correct me. The best you can do is because it's pronunciation, please correct me in the comment section below. So when I was watching the fight, both guys did look like they're really sharp in their striking, just how their footwork and their stance in the octagon there. So we can get it up back on the screen again. I've got it here. That's alright, but Pantoja won this fight by unanimous decision. So as I said before, both guys, for me anyway, as a novice who's still learning a shit ton of knowledge about the sport, for me it did look like both guys were alert, sharp in their striking and their leg kicks. But of the two, Pantoja was the better fighter, and he won. Now towards the end of round one, it did seem as if there was a moment there that Carpe looked like Carp lost his balance when he was trying to throw a strike, and Pantoja seized the opportunity to get well, not there wasn't. I wouldn't say it's a takedown, because when Carp lost his balance, he actually fell to the floor. Pantoja just seized the opportunity, got in there and kept the guy on the ground. So I can see how and why he won that fight. So I will remind you guys, not remind you, but I'll point out that for this UFC Vegas, I really just focused on the main card, the co-main event, and the main event, and the other fights that were on the main card. Unfortunately, I was a bit too tired to watch the rest of the fight card, the preliminary card, which was like the other half. So up next after that was Ferreira versus Dariush, the lightweight division. Dariush won by split decision. And after that was Marquez versus Rodriguez, the light heavyweight division. So the first round, actually, you know what? Let me get this up on the screen. Yeah. Because this was this was a pretty decent fight. Marquez got plenty of takedowns in there, and at one point he did something really smart, which is something I saw with another fight that happened. Was it sometime in, I think it was in January or December? Another fight, I think. Shit, I really got to make a list of all the fighters I'm going to talk about on my podcast. Another fighter called, he's a mixed race guy, has tattoos, has glasses, has 3 daughters. He did this sort of move whereby he got a takedown in and then dragged his opponent to the center of the octagon, instead of doing the takedown by the edge of the octagon next to the fence. But Rodriguez did something like this in this fight. After Marquez got another takedown in, Rodriguez actually dragged himself to the fence so he could have the fence to have some leverage in that takedown to at least get himself up into a clinch, and then hopefully after that break out of the clinch. So one thing I did notice about the fight is that Marquez's ground game was really good, and I think towards the end of the round, how he won the fight, he won by submission, a technical rear naked chokehold. It was a technical knockout. Technical submission. Technical submission, sorry guys, via a rear naked chokehold. And he had already managed to pin his opponent, Rodriguez, down on the floor, and was even in the corner there, which was on Rodriguez's side of the cage, where he had his own team. I could hear them. Well, if you're watching the fight, you could hear them shouting instructions to their teammate or to their fighter. So at that point, Marquez managed to get his opponent into a rear naked chokehold, and Rodriguez taps, and Marquez on the fight. Okay, now this fight, Devontae Smith versus Justin James, the catchweight division. Good fight, and the fight had to be stopped because James took a serious injury, and Justin James had taken a serious injury to his eye, and really was really nasty. I think when made notes on this. Whilst James was being pinned down, Smith was still dishing out hard strikes and a few elbows, and one of those elbows caught James in his left eye, and it wasn't any ordinary swelling or black eye. I mean, the whole lower socket of James's eye socket had swollen up even to a different color. So it was really horrible, and there's no I'm gonna say it really without being called stupid or being called a fucking idiot. If the fight was stopped, understandably, because could he have fought with just one eye? There's no way he could have seen out of his left eye. He would have just have had to rely on the vision cut of his right eye. So probably it makes sense for them to stop that fight. And unfortunately, almost like a forfeit, Smith would be the winner of that fight. So the swelling on the eye just looked disgusting, and I just saw it for about the 3rd or 4th time before making this video, and I still felt like I was seeing it for the first time. Horrible. Okay, so now Paige Vanzant, her debut in BKFC in bare knuckle fighting championship. Excuse me. So yeah, so many people. I don't need to repeat this because if you'd followed MMA, especially around the end of summer last year, you would have known that or heard of her moving to bare knuckle fighting after her contract with the UFC had come to its end. Many people in majority were actually against it, and it wasn't up until I actually queried this my first podcast, which I couldn't upload because one thing or another happened. It wasn't until I actually researched this and asked about it that I actually found out that bare knuckle fighting is actually different to the UFC and Bellator and Pride and One Championship. That you actually fight with your bare knuckles, and I saw that in the ring when she was fighting the other girl, Britton Hart. I think is that short for Brittany or something, but no, when she was fighting the other girl, Britton Hart, and I saw that the only thing they had around their hands was basically, when you are gonna spar and you're gonna wear the mitts for mixed martial arts, wear the boxing gloves for boxing. There's some cloth that you put around your hands. I don't know the name of it, but you hook your fingers and your thumb into the innermost part. Then you wrap the rest of it around your hand. That's more or less what they're using. Probably something slightly different, but it's more or less the same thing. So I was actually surprised, So when each opponent's throwing the punch or strike to the other opponent, you're really going to feel the force from the opponent's hand when they're throwing that punch, because there's nothing to cushion the blow. So even though still, if you're wearing any sort of protection, of course, you can, if you're throwing that strike or jab hard enough, you can still do your opponent some serious damage. So I was just surprised, and God, I was watching the fights this thing yesterday on just a rerun just to see how she performed. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I was just so tired. But being that I spent, I saw Paige Vanzant even at one point took a blow, just a clean shot from Brittany Hart. What I was gonna say, it's just unfortunate she didn't win. So she hasn't started off well in the company, in the organization, but still, she is a very good athlete. Especially coming out from an organization from like the UFC. She's a very good mixed martial arts fighter, so hopefully this might be her. It will be her first fight that she's lost, but hopefully the next one she will win. Because I was wondering why people last year, when she announced the move to BKFC from the UFC, why people so against it. First of all, I found out that BKFC is going to be, the fights tend to be bloodier because all you're allowed to fight with is your fists. You can't do any other moves that you're allowed to do in the UFC and other similar organizations like Bellator and One Championship. You can use your fists, you can use your knees, your legs for kicks, you can use your arms for chokeholds, you can use your legs for a triangle, you can use your body for a takedown or for a clinch. So in BKFC there's less you can do, and there's more rules that are put in front of you. So I'm assuming it's gonna be harder to win a fight unless if you are one committed athlete. When you step into that ring, you just go straight for your opponent and you just give them a hard, just a serious KO, and you just knock them out cold. So I can understand kind of seeing how she performed. Maybe, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm writing her off in BKFC, but not as a mixed martial arts fighter. Maybe I am writing her off too soon. But I'm not writing her off because that's just one fight. They're not gonna kick her out after that. And she has proven herself in the UFC. No, can I say she's proven herself in the UFC? I don't even know that much about her or her record in the UFC. So, but I mean, if she was in an organization like the UFC, she must have been a really good mixed martial artist, because the UFC usually have the best fights. Even though at one point I was querying, does this organization have the best fights? And we got Bellator, they put on some decent fights as well. You have One Championship, they have some really, really good fighters over there. They put on some really, really, really good fights. And the reason why I say that is because after the UFC and Bellator, just take those two organizations for this example I'm gonna give now. when the either one of those organizations does a fight, and then maybe if we couldn't watch the actual live event on a streaming platform, something like that, or a pay-per-view, if you can't see it's on that, if you go to a site such as YouTube and watch the highlights there or the full fight, the UFC always tends to have more more highlights and much more videos and clips. At least you'll see something from the fight, and then from that you can kind of determine and probably understand why this fighter won. If it's Bellator, not to shit on the organization, because I know Bellator has a history of treating the fighters much more humanely, and they also pay them more as well. Whilst the UFC, they're much more of the opposite. I think their own reward to their fighters is that if the fighter does well, if they perform well, if they win lots of fights, I guess if they're marketable, then how they pay them basically, just as they're rising up the ranks, how they'll pay them, and this will sound so stupid, cringy, and probably awkward. They'll pay them basically with fame and star power, because the UFC is a thoroughly established brand in MMA, and probably in the all around the world, especially in the United States, as a household brand for what they do, MMA. Bellator probably is not so much there, but I mean, again, in one of my older podcasts, the example I gave was how well this organization is known, how popular they are. Is that some people think that just the name UFC, that acronym, that brand, is the sport itself, whereby the sport itself is MMA, mixed martial arts, not UFC. UFC is just one of the organizations that promotes the sports, promotes the athletes that do the sport for a living. The actual sport itself is MMA, not UFC. But I mean, that's just an example. That's just an example of just how big these two companies are. One's a lot bigger than the other, but one of them treats their fighters a lot better. And I've even lost my train of thought of what I was talking about before. But no, what I was saying now, I remember what I was saying basically is that if someone like Paige Vanzant was fighting the UFC, then she must have been a really, really good mixed martial artist, because usually the best fights and the best fighters, I'm sure that I'm going to take some heat for this in my comment section and wherever I post and promote this podcast. The best fights, the best MMA material and content, anything you want to talk about mixed martial arts, it's still in the UFC, and there's no doubt, there's no denying that. I mean, I've asked people, other coaches I've trained with, other coaches I know, other people who are vested in this sport far more than myself. Where are the best fights? Where are the best events held? Where are the best fighters? Where are they working? And I've told them about Bellator, I've told them about One Championship. I've told them especially about Bellator, because Bellator is another American company that they cater to the US market, to US, UK, Europe, and South America, parts of Africa, Australia. They cater to that demographic, that sort of market. Whereas One Championship is much more concentrated in the Far Eastern market, Asia, China, Japan, so on, that part of the world. And they even confirmed that yes, the UFC do hold the best events, they've got the best fights, and so and so. If Paige Vanzant was fighting for an organization, such as the UFC, where this sport is concerned, MMA, then she must have been a good athlete. She must have been really good. I have not seen her record personally myself, so some people may disagree with me when they hear me say this, and even call me all sorts of names. But for this fight, I was actually looking forward to seeing, and I thought she would have won. I would have bet my money on her winning, but maybe that would have been a mistake. But hopefully the next one will be a lot better than this one. Now, I'm belching so much. Ooh, I'm trying to throw up. So, Alistair Overeem, now after his loss at UFC Vegas 18, I saw his performance in the octagon there with Alexander Volkov. Yes, he lost, Volkov won. Congratulations, Alexander Volkov, on your win. You've beaten someone who's had a long record, 67 fights, and in those 67 fights, he's won 47 of those. He's fought in almost every combat sporting organization in the world. at least for kickboxing and mixed martial arts. He had a long, phenomenal career. Lots of fights. He's 40 years old, which in the fighting world for sports, that is old, but in general, that's still young. But I mean, there are questions about whether he should retire or not. And I saw his performance in the cage. When it came to recovering, yes, I can understand why people would be questioning down to, wouldn't be so happy about what they saw. His recovery really wasn't good. And he even said himself in a statement, he couldn't recover from that broken nose that he got in the first round from Volkov. Now, he released a statement recently saying on Instagram, "Yesterday wasn't my night. I could not recover from that punch in the first round after I broke my nose. My highest priority right now is to heal up and to spend some well-deserved time with the family. I'll be back in the gym soon, though." So that doesn't sound like he has any intention of retiring at all. He hasn't even hinted at it. He's just saying basically he needs some time to rest, really recover, recuperate, recharge, and get back in the gym and start training, start working again towards the next fight. That's if the UFC are going to give him another fight. I'm not sure about how many more fights he has left in his contract. So it depends whether the UFC are going to let him fight again, at least in their organization, and depends what Dana White says. I always say the UFC and Dana White because Dana White started that organization all those years ago in 93, 94, 92. So yeah, because those are the people who have the final last words. Even someone like Conor McGregor, despite him being Dana White's golden boy, still it has to go through Dana White first, whether or not a fight that Conor McGregor wants will happen at all, whether it will happen or not. Conor McGregor might bring the organization money, but Conor McGregor doesn't own the organization. Whatever the prince wants, the prince gets. So basically now the question is for Overeem, should he retire? He's 40 years old, but still he's had a really long and really admiring fighting career. So guys, that's it. Yep, that's the end of it. Hopefully, if you did like this video, please do leave a like. Excuse me, I keep burping and belching. I feel I'm going to throw up, but yes, guys, if you did like the video, please don't forget to leave a like. Please do subscribe, and you can also follow me on Instagram. My name's Ojiako1, and on Twitter, my name's Ojiako. I'm not sure if people usually are into Facebook anymore, but I do see some accounts on there are still active for the accounts I follow and for the people I'm friends with. On Facebook, my name's Ojiako. And you can find my podcast on Spotify, Google Podcast, Player FM, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Listen Notes, Podchaser, and I'm still trying to get my podcast out there to many other platforms. I think the biggest issue I'm having now again is the Apple iTunes podcast platform. For some reason, that is just not accepting my artwork. I'm still trying to get around to doing that. There must be a way of doing it. I think it's the third or fourth time I'm saying this now in the podcast, but it's something I'm sure that can be done really easily. So, my podcast will be on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts very soon. Alright guys, so take care.